Champlain gradually gathers strength as it rolls inland to toss up the crests of the Adirondacks. Here, burying himself in the woods, he skirted the unkempt farms, whose cottage lights, just beginning to burn, served him as signals to keep further off. When forced to cross one of the sterile fields, he crawled low, blotting himself out among the boulders. At times a patch of tall, tasselled Indian corn, interlaced with wandering pumpkin vines, gave him cover, till he regained the shelter of the vast Appalachian mother forest, which, after climbing Cumberlands, Alleghanies, Catskills, and Adirondacks, here clambered down in long reaches of ash and maple, juniper and pine, toward the lowlands of the north. As far as he had yet been able to formulate a plan of flight, it was to seek his safety among the hills. The necessity of the instant was driving him towards the open country and the lake, but he hoped to double soon upon his tracks, finding his way back to the lumber camps, whose friendly spiriting from bunkhouse to bunkhouse would baffle pursuit. Once he gained even a few hours' security, he would be able to some extent to pick and choose his way. He steered himself by the peak of Greytop, black against the last coral-tinted glow of the sunset, as a sailor steers by a star. There was further assurance that he was not losing himself or wandering in a circle, when, from some chance outlook, he ventured to glance backward and saw the pinnacle of Windy Mountains, or the dome of the Pilot, straight behind him. There lay the natural retreat of the lynx, the bear, and the outlaw like himself. And as he fled farther from them, it was with the same frenzied instinct to return that the driven stag must feel towards the bed of fern from which he has been roused. But, for the minute, there was one imperative necessity: to go on anywhere, anyhow, so long as it took him far enough from the spot where masked men had loosed the handcuffs from his wrists and stray shots had come ringing after him. In his path there were lakelets which he swam, and streams which he forded. Over the low hills he scrambled through an undergrowth so dense that even the snake or the squirrel might have avoided it to find some easier way. Now and then, as he dragged himself up the more barren ascents, the loose soil gave way beneath his steps in miniature avalanches of stone and sand, over which he crept, clinging to tufts of grass or lightly rooted saplings, to rise at last with hands scratched and feet bleeding. Then on again, frantically, as the hare runs and as the crow flies, without swerving, on, with the sole aim of gaining time and covering distance. He was not a native of the mountains, though in the 2 years spent among them he had come to acknowledge their charm. It was only as a man learns to love an alien mistress, whose alternating moods of savagery and softness hold him with a spell of which he is half afraid. More than anyone suspected, or he could have explained, his reckless life had been the rebellion of his man-trained urban instinct against the domination of this supreme earth force, to which he was of no more value than a falling leaf or a dissolving cloud. Even now, as he flung himself on the forest's protection, it was not with the solace of the sun returning to the mother. It was rather as a man might take refuge from a lion in a mammoth cavern, where the darkness only conceals dangers. After the struggle with crude nature, the smooth, grass-carpeted wagon track brought him more than a physical sense of comfort. It not only made his flight swift and easy, but it had been marked out by man for man's purposes and to meet man's need. It was the result of a human intelligence. It led to a human goal. It was possible that it might lead even him into touch with human sympathies. With the thought, he became conscious all at once that he was famished and fatigued. Up to the present he had been as little aware of the body as a spirit on its way between two worlds. It had ached and sweated and bled, but he had not noticed it. The electric fluid could not have seemed more tireless or iron more insensate. But now, when the hardship was somewhat relaxed, he was forced back on the perception that he was faint and hungry. His speed slackened. His shoulders sagged. The long second wind, which had lasted so well, began to shorten. For the first time it occurred to him to wonder how long his strength would hold out. It was then that he noticed a deflection of the wood road towards the north, down over the brow.